have you ever wondered why we don't hear about diseases like smallpox or polio anymore? The answer lies in the power of immunizations. These are not just simple shots, but are shields against some of the most deadly diseases that have plagued humanity. Immunizations work by teaching our bodies how to fight off invaders. They use a tiny piece of the disease, just enough for our immune system to recognize it, and then our bodies remember how to defeat it if we ever encounter the real thing. Once, diseases like measles, mumps, and diphtheria were the common cause of death. But today, thanks to the power of vaccines, they are almost unheard of in many parts of the world. Smallpox was eradicated globally in 1979, and polio is on the brink of eradication. This is the power of immunizations, the silent guardians protecting us every day. The answer to these miracles of modern health? Vaccines. The journey of immunizations started way back in the 18th century. Picture this, it's the year 1796, and a curious English physician named Edward Jenner is about to change the world. Jenner noticed something peculiar in his rural community. Milkmaids, who were regularly exposed to cowpox, a less severe disease, seemed to be immune to the devastating smallpox. Intrigued by this observation, Jenner devised a bold experiment. He took material from a cowpox sore on a milkmaid's hand and introduced it into the body of a young boy named James Phipps. Now, this might sound a bit alarming by today's standards, but remember, this was a time when the concept of germs was virtually unknown. Jenner's experiment was revolutionary, and it laid the groundwork for the scientific method in medicine. After inoculating James with cowpox, Jenner waited for a few weeks before exposing him to smallpox. To everyone's relief, James did not fall ill. He had been granted immunity. Jenner's observations suggested that the cowpox infection had somehow prepared the boy's body to resist smallpox. This was the first instance of what we now know as vaccination, a term derived from vacca, the Latin word for cow. Jenner's findings were met with skepticism initially. However, as more and more successful vaccinations were reported, the medical community began to recognize the potential of Jenner's discovery. In 1802, the Royal Society published Jenner's work, and the world got its first official vaccine. The smallpox vaccine was a game changer. It offered humanity a weapon against a disease that had ravaged populations for centuries. Its impact was so profound that in 1979, the World Health Organization declared smallpox eradicated, thanks largely to widespread vaccination. Thus, the first vaccine was born, marking a significant milestone in medical history. The success of the smallpox vaccine sparked a revolution in disease prevention. As we journey through time, we find ourselves in the mid-20th century, a period marked by significant strides in the field of immunization. In the year 1955, a medical triumph shook the world. Jonas Salk, a brilliant virologist, developed the first effective polio vaccine. This feat was nothing short of a miracle, as polio was a terrifying threat that had left countless victims in its wake, many of them children. The polio vaccine not only saved lives, but also offered hope, proving that we could stand up to these invisible enemies. The polio vaccine marked the beginning of a new era, one where vaccines would become our most potent weapon against infectious diseases. As the decades rolled on, more and more vaccines were developed, each one chipping away at the burden of disease that humanity had borne for centuries. The 60s saw the introduction of the MMR vaccine, a combined vaccine that provided protection against measles, mumps, and rubella. This was a game changer. These three diseases, which had been a common part of childhood and often led to severe complications, suddenly became preventable. Parents no longer had to watch helplessly as their children suffered. Instead, they could arm their little ones with immunity, giving them the chance to grow and thrive without the shadow of these diseases looming over them. And so, the story of vaccines continued, each chapter filled with new breakthroughs and advancements. From the hepatitis B vaccine in the 70s to the human papillomavirus vaccine in the early 2000s, the march of progress was relentless. The vaccines didn't just prevent diseases, they transformed lives and reshaped societies. They allowed us to dream of a world where no child would have to suffer from preventable diseases, where every person could live a healthier, fuller life. With each new vaccine, humanity took another step towards a healthier future. Fast forward to the 21st century, and vaccines are more crucial than ever. As we ushered in the new millennium, we also saw the advent of vaccines for diseases that had plagued humanity for decades. Let's take a moment to appreciate the marvels of modern vaccines. First, there's the vaccine for human papillomavirus, or HPV for short. This particular virus is a bit of a sneaky sort, causing a plethora of health issues ranging from warts to cancer. But thanks to the tireless efforts of scientists, the HPV vaccine was introduced in 2006, offering protection against the most dangerous strains of the virus. Next up, we have the hepatitis vaccines. Hepatitis, an inflammation of the liver, comes in several types, but hepatitis B and C are the most common. Vaccines for hepatitis B have been around since the 80s, but it wasn't until 2011 that we saw the first vaccine for hepatitis C. These vaccines have been instrumental in preventing liver disease and cirrhosis, saving countless lives in the process. But perhaps the most significant demonstration of the power of vaccines came in 2020, when the world found itself in the grip of the COVID-19 pandemic. In an unprecedented global effort, multiple vaccines were developed in record time. This achievement was nothing short of miraculous, given that vaccine development typically takes several years. The COVID-19 vaccines have been a game changer, slowing the spread of the virus and reducing the severity of the disease for those who do get infected. In the face of a global pandemic, vaccines once again proved to be our best defense. The story of vaccines is a testament to human ingenuity and resilience, a story of how we rise to the challenge when faced with a threat to our collective health. As we continue to make strides in vaccine development, one thing remains clear. Vaccines are and will remain an indispensable tool in our fight against infectious diseases. Despite the overwhelming evidence supporting vaccines, controversy still persists. In the world of immunization, there's no shortage of myths and misconceptions. Perhaps one of the most enduring and the most harmful is the debunked link between vaccines and autism. This fallacy stems from a flawed study published in the late 90s, which was later retracted due to its poor methodology and unethical practices. Numerous studies since then, involving millions of children, have found no evidence of a connection. Yet, the myth persists, fueled by misinformation and fear. It's essential to remember that correlation does not equal causation. Just because two events occur together doesn't mean one caused the other. Take, for instance, the fact that children often receive vaccines around the same time autism symptoms first appear. This timing can create a false impression of a cause and effect relationship. Another common misconception is that vaccines are unnecessary or even dangerous because they contain toxins. The truth is, the substances in vaccines, like formaldehyde and aluminium, are found in much higher quantities in our environment and even in our bodies. The amounts used in vaccines are minuscule and have been proven safe through extensive testing. Speaking of testing, vaccines are among the most rigorously tested medical interventions we have. They go through multiple stages of clinical trials involving tens of thousands of participants. These trials are designed to assess both the effectiveness and the safety of the vaccine. Even after a vaccine is licensed, it continues to be monitored for safety. The fear and suspicion surrounding vaccines are often rooted in a lack of understanding or misinformation. But the reality is, vaccines have brought about some of the greatest public health triumphs in history. They have eradicated smallpox, nearly wiped out polio, and dramatically reduced the incidence of diseases like measles and whooping cough. At the end of the day, the science is clear. Vaccines save lives. So what's next for vaccines? Well, the horizon of immunizations is as exciting as it is vast. One of the most promising avenues in vaccine technology is the development of personalized vaccines, tailored to an individual's genetic makeup. Imagine a world where a vaccine is as unique as you are, customized to offer you the best possible protection against diseases. We are also looking at potential vaccines for diseases we currently have no cure for, like Alzheimer's and certain forms of cancer. These are not just dreams, but active areas of research, promising a future where we can prevent diseases that have long been seen as inevitable. The future also holds the potential for advancements in vaccine delivery systems, making them more accessible and easier to administer. While we cannot predict the future, one thing is certain: vaccines will continue to play a crucial role in global health.